Well, you might have to unmute. Yeah, you will. So you know how to do that, Elana, right? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I just unmuted
good.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for coming to Readings of Longing. This is an annual National Poetry Month extravaganza featuring all the members of the Long Dash Writing Group Poetry Workshop. As you can see, there's 8 of us. The Long Dash has been going for a long time. I came on around the year 2000, and I think Mary Lou at least was still in it. Was in it from an earlier iteration that somebody else facilitated, and other people have joined along the way. So we're a long-running group. We used to do an annual thing with the Women's Arts Association of Canada studio artists in National Poetry Month. For 10 years, we did a collaboration where we looked at their artwork. We wrote or found poems that had some resonance with those. We had an exhibition and a reading, but we stopped that after its 10th year, which was good timing because the pandemic started up within a year after that. So we're reading work on the theme of intimacy, which is what the League said would be the theme. So thanks to the League of Canadian Poets for sponsoring this. Also the Canada Council and the Toronto Arts Council have all contributed. If you joined recently, you should be able to go to the chat to see the bios of the authors in the chat box. We're doing that to save time because with 8 people, just the turnovers and the introduction and the brief bios could take a long time. So with no more ado, I'm going to introduce Elena Wolfe.
Thanks very much, John. Everyone, welcome to our reading. I'll be reading 3 poems. The first is a piece for a daughter and son who faced inordinately difficult life challenges during the pandemic, and they still are. My thanks to the editorial team at the online journal Montreal Sorail for including this piece in the current issue. And the title of the poem is Concertina. Think of all the times you haven't been thwarted by your teeth and tongue, your clavicle and ulnas, femurs and gut. Body says, this one's on me. Brain says, what's remembered lives. It's all right not to get over loss. Light left Vega when you were born. It's taken this long to arrive. A run begun in a great bright kite the ancients called a lyre. You are always the center of the poem, even when you're not. Just before imploding, a giant star releases a tone, we're told, that's close to middle C. Do stars relinquish sound? If they do, can we hear it? Beyond the poem are sirens, fire, sea careening the pier. Beyond the poem, a brother burned. It's his exigency pushing the poem through to the flume below. A hawk and swallow chorus rises higher than a hope. A truck down gears, a horn, let's go. Sounds that keep us peaked. You loathe the racket. The whole wide world's a narrow bridge, a concertina wire. The key is not to fear, to make it across. Okay, the second piece speaks to the deep field of longing, and I'm thankful to poet and judge Phil Hall for placing this poem second in the 2021 Short Grain Literary Contest. And this piece is Sun Colors, Deep Field. There was a lingering, a scent, a gentle knelling sound a body could trust, and lemony yellow, fennel green, a whimpering over milk, sheer loveliness of rosy, gummy gums. Looking up is the essential vertical gesture, I recently read. Infants in the arms of mum, their open, soulful gaze. You don't command them, look at me. Instinctively and sweetly, they just do. There's vehemence to leaving a place one didn't intend to leave so soon, abruptly. If loving once meant tending, it's now refrain, a deeper field of longing, where earlier, it seems, mere wanting lay. And I'm going to close with a third piece, a new poem written here in Tel Aviv, where I am right now, as you can see from my virtual background, which is a photo of the Oughton River. We took a trip about 2 weeks ago to the north, to the Galilee, and went hiking on the beautiful Mount Arbel, which is particularly beautiful right now with the greening of spring. And among the amazing sights we saw there was a flock of black storks floating high above the mountain. So here's the poem from that day and from just being here. For now, it's called Longing. Dark begins in day on dusk of indigo and open blinds. You've tried to quell the dinning streets, to plug the porous mind, a haplessness at closing holes. Yet openness is probably the purest term for peace. Dusk, the lithest time of day, the way it bends and flexes. Yesterday, the black storks in the thermal air above Arbel were listing like there's not a way to sink. Sailing like 100 high-born skippers on a stilling, soaring in a language matching silence. One has to thank these avians for quieting the mind, to simply pause and watch. Black storks in the skies above Arbel. Then you see a reservoir. Could it be a reservoir? A shining stripe of water in the distance, thin and wide. You want to go there, be there, yet you can't and likely never will. This picture, like a prophet, like a numbness on the mountain. Thank you, everyone. And now I'm going to turn over the screen to Sheila Stewart. Sheila.
Thank you so much, Elana. That was fabulous. And John, for all your organizing of us and the tech. And a huge thank you to everyone who's here today. It's good to see friends and family. So I'm going to start with, I'm reading recent poems, and this one is called What You Really Mean. Turn the clock back to erase the 3 weeks of worry each month. Bathe in a pool to wash away self-doubt. Take 30 minutes in the light just before delivering the workshop on decolonization and pedagogy. Replay 3 years of parenting young children to learn how to lie on the carpet, giggle, school bell be damned, homework, piano lessons. Just before the school bell, kiss them adieu and take 30 minutes to dilly-dally dawdle home before resuming. Either way, you have 30 minutes left to say what you really mean, or the rest of your life. And this poem has a little note with it because there's a line here that comes from Sue Goyette's Psychic in her book Undone. So that's the line, either way, you have 30 minutes left to say what you really mean. So thank you to Sue for that. This is called Sometimes Grief, and it's after Lynn Unger's In the Ruins. Sometimes Grief. A woman sits on the detritus, the pile of what remains. No students in the empty institution, no teachers, no laughter, just notes and cards, memos and minutes. A mirrored bag a student made to hold her final stories. A shelf called Poetry Books for Students. A milkweed pod from when she first taught writing the body. Its vulva-shaped pleased her. And on her perch, she is playing an instrument constructed of what's left. A badge. I love TAs. Enough paper cups for a class of 100. A pencil in need of sharpening. A pair of strong legs. It sounds just as it should. Inhale, exhale. The cups ask for water, drops and splashes. The badge for dignity. The pencil asks for marginalia. The woman sings because sometimes grief is grace, sometimes resistance. And another poem on the teaching, mixed relationship with teaching theme, and this one's really still very much in process with some pencil notations on it. Touching roof, touching rain. Rising with a day off, lighter. The way breeze caresses relaxed muscles. Letting go of students' distress. My need to prove something. Nothing to do. Grade, understand. Nothing to capture, contain. Rain touching, roof tasting, rain. And a short final poem that I'll end with, which is from a chapbook called Pink Flamingos, which was edited by Lorna Crozier, and these poems were written at Wintergreen Studios north of Kingston. The pink flamingo salt and pepper shakers will be misplaced before the end of the world. I can barely imagine. Daughters gone. I'm 60 plus. 1984, so far off when I read that book. The unfathomability of it. Thank you so much. And I'm thinking to how we're doing it in reverse alphabetical order, which I think means Mary Lou Soutar-Hynes. The wonderful Mary Lou comes next.
Thank you very much, Sheila. That's a very kind introduction. And thanks so much, John, for all your work in initiating and organizing this event. And a special appreciation to everybody who joined us today on this beautiful day outside in Toronto. And it's wonderful to see familiar faces, family and friends. As I tried to decide what poems to read, I realized that many of my poems arise from spaces of longing and also of intimacy. So today I'll read some new work, along with just a couple of poems from my last two collections published by Nana, Dark Water Songs in 2013 and Any Waking Morning in 2019, launched just months before the pandemic shut us down. I'll open with two small poems from Dark Water Songs, read a couple of new ones, also very short, and close with one from Any Waking Morning. So from Dark Water Songs, the poem By Invitation. My invitation, beyond the windward side of islands where tides dance, I step into your silence, feel its velvet buoyancy, its dark salt anointing the tongue, deep ocean's intimate undulations, the teeth of reefs, your wave pools naked, breaking sweat. And perhaps a day will pass, or maybe two, before words slip like Saturn's probe into orbit. Delicate maneuvers on my screen, slow and steady, landscapes randomly revealed. An intimate indifference, the way a wind lifts each kite equally, ruffles hair, furrows a lake, how a shutter slices shadow. Perhaps this is the way love stays its course, hands light on the reins, the way a flame lingers on the wick, intimate indifference, the way a cat might curl or a train hug the rails. And then a couple of new ones. The first, she was susceptible. She was susceptible to sunlight, its singular vocabulary, arc of winter's warm reprieve, peppermint and sage, dark matter's casual intensity, harmonics of a wave, twilight minutes beyond the cedars, ebb and flow of a gaze, those shimmering spaces, their questions locked like rooms. Perhaps it's kismet. Perhaps it's kismet, crossed threads and contradictions delicately stitched, coincidence, serendipity, and je ne sais quoi, overtures and invitations transcending solitudes, those curious laws and probabilities bringing us together, a quantum of deeper truths that keep us from unraveling. This next one, the last new one, is entitled Sightlines, and one of the lines is a riff on a quote from Mary Oliver, her comment on first meeting her lifelong partner, photographer Molly Malone. In my poem, I use the line falling, hook, and tumble. And Mary Oliver said, I took one look and fell, hook, and tumble. Sightlines. Sightlines along a mirror's plane, the door ajar. Your breath, or was it hers, the quality of light, and falling, hook, and tumble. Angles of incidents, tight turns and paths revealed in the fullness of years. Reflections, piercing certainty, and you enthralled counting the ways of milkweed and honeysuckle. And I'll close with a poem from my last collection, the one published in 2019, Any Waking Morning. And this one is entitled Sometimes. Sometimes the most tender moments are hiding in plain sight. Only clue a plaintive cry, please find me, like our cat pleading for her morning recognition. Maybe it's light wind brisk on cusp of being breeze, some bite bracing enough, but wanting, wispy clouds cotton furrowed, springing azurious, still naked trees etched crystal clear astride the pavement, a cedar fence, its panes gray canvas, sunlit sliced, in sidewalks jagged cracks, a bold infusion, like love burned into grooves, impossible to lose, still playing well beyond, invincible as webs unbreachable tension, its slender silk, fine spun. Thanks so much. And now, thank you. And now, John Oughton. Over to you, John.
Thanks, Mary Lou. So I hope everyone can hear me. Yes, good. Okay. So you heard in Mary Lou's poetry the word intimacy or intimate a couple of times, which is very appropriate for the theme. When I was trying to decide what to read, I found a poem of mine that has a line about longing. Well, actually 2 lines. So I'm going to start with that. This is called Some Old Sonnet. It is 14 lines if anyone's counting. And it refers to a couple of my literary influences. One is Irving Layton, who I took a poetry workshop with when he taught at York University. The other is W.B. Yeats, who unfortunately I didn't get to meet, but is still one of my favorite poets. Some Old Sonnet. Fierce and ridiculous, the aged Layton, aging Yeats, strove against sagging, wrinkling flesh, lines lusting free as lost kites. Heart a super ball, pardon me. Heart a super ball, free to physics rule, bounding higher as the sentence of years grew. The young still fall into beauty as though it were new. In longing, we live. Longing, we fall along those we lost and those who loaned love to us. In the burning city, mirrored in a falling blade, my head again tumbles, then soars. The next one is called Time Crystal, and both Mary Lou and I have a habit of finding things about discoveries in science and astronomy and physics and, taking that as inspiration for poems. This one's called Time Crystal, and a time crystal is a pattern of atoms that isn't repeated in space the way a crystal is. It's repeated in time. So the atoms might go into other formations, but eventually they come back to their original formation. And this is a new discovery, the time crystal. You, lying around in your lowest energy state, laser spinning quasi-particle magnons. This current lattice, non-eternal. An instant spin and you form a different pattern, one you had before and will again, depending on the when. Unlike that body on a couch, energy neither taken nor given. As it alters state, you might be that cute quantum bundle you once were. The dispersing ghost of glitter you will be, the state of who you are, always a possible condition. Okay, and this one is about intimacy between a father and his son, not the wrong kind, but the good kind. It's called Across the Bleak Alley because I live in an old apartment building that looks across an alley to other apartments, and the ones below me I can actually see into. I don't tend to, but if they don't have blinds or curtains, I sort of notice them sometimes. So this one is called Across the Bleak Alley. I don't mean to spy, but they're one floor below and curtainless. No rugs or art, only minimal furniture. So by accident, I see Dad cooking, balancing their tight budget, his head cradled in hands. I invent backstories. Mom died at birth or couldn't endure infant wails. She said, I can't take this, he's yours. I wonder if years later, the son will look at a bare window, and miss that time when he was his father's full world. Okay, Mirage. At first, the air is clear as clean glass. Things stay where your brain predicts. Now, the castle poised on fragile turrets, wet road over the dry one. Miracle of palms and lapping water after a kiln of sand and scrub. Mariners spy distant cities their sails will never reach. That's like you with me. Sometimes nothing but light and distance, then lips over the hill, heart beating thunder from clouds. Spatial variations of the refraction index of air, something illusory without substance or reality. And those last two lines were stolen from a definition of Mirage. Okay, mixed marital arts. I was sitting in a bar one day watching mixed martial arts, which is, you know, guys fighting, however, kicks, punches, whatnot. And I thought there was a strange kind of love between the two, even though they were beating each other up. So I wrote this. Oddly loving, head resting on his partner's bladed chest. They reach for each other, thighs interlocked and flinch. Love hurting, can't stop scoring points. Readying for the air kiss, the other spins a kick. Slow-mo shockwaves, the face bulging. Power is pain. Advisors stem the bleeds, ice stiff necks, offer tactics inside the gold ring. Their old Punch and Judy. Lips split, noses puff in the clinch, still close enough for lovers. After the ritual whipping, they embrace. And I'll end with two more, one's short, another's slightly longer. And again, this one refers to astronomy in some ways, but it was inspired by a painting by Beryl Goring called Space Fantasy. Exploratory voyage. Heavy the lid that closes the light, tight on fall's turning edge. The periphery of your personality fills with astronomical phenomena. Here is your Van Allen belt, its dangerous micro debris and toxic radiation. Here the star nursery, where unborn dreams stream and roll. Here is the dark side, which we cannot see. It is not you, but the little moons of you orbiting irregularly, where a lost planetary rover buries its nose and zooms no more. Here the sun breaks strangely with multiple moons, a cold gleam. There, finally, is your liquid heart, which entered, changes everything. And I'll end with this one. It's called Another Dream, and is based on a real dream, if there is such a thing. In the midst of a party, I was told you were at the door, unexpected. My clothes fell like maple leaves as I hurried to meet you. You could see my pleasure at your return. You brought gifts, a small dresser with fake veneer, a glass apple, best of all, yourself. Thank you for listening. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Merle Nudelman.
Thank you, John. And thank you as well for all your work, as you always give so much to our group. Much, much appreciated. And greetings to everyone who's joining us this afternoon, and to a few of my dear friends, many thanks for your ongoing support. I have 4 poems to share with you on our theme of intimacy and longing. And the first one I've selected is a love poem, which I seldom write. They are so hard to do. And this particular love poem speaks to the courage it takes to be vulnerable and to open completely to love. The title of this poem is taken from a sonnet by William Shakespeare, from Sonnet 73. And the title is To Love That Well, Which Thou Must Leave Ere Long. Scented sunrise, liquid midnight, we entwine, loop, tucked in the arc of your arms, my brow brushing your chin like a purring Siamese. I inhale your whispers, pulse with your heart. You, I, the we of us, pruned and polished through bounty, famine, thorny travail. We close, open the book of yesterday. Today, one flesh, one luminous being, fashioned from stardust and airy nothing. The next poem follows a shimmering interaction that involved my friend Steve, a courageous man who is living with advanced ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. How beautiful when our very human need to connect and to be seen are realized. And this poem is called Petals on the Patio, and it's dedicated to Steve. Steve wheels up to the marbled table in his chair, the ALS logo stamped on the back. We settle. The perky server deposits menus, sparkles, what'll you have? With southern charm and big sky. Wine in hand, Steve's with a straw. We clink glasses, toast friends, good times, the gift of now. Sipping Malbec, we chuckle at the stories. Other days on this patio beneath the copper arcs. Theater night and 2 hours with no dinner, the apology, their gift, FedEx box stuffed with dry ice and 24 pints of frozen fanciful custard. More laughter, and a fella from the next table saunters over, nods and smiles at our startled, lopsided grins. He bends towards Steve. I'm Jim. I've admired your high spirits and humor. Have to say hi and ask to shake your hand. He pats Steve on the shoulder, leaves us nudged onto another track, speechless. We nibble ahi tuna and green beans. The sun sets and streaks the blue brilliantly rosy. Steve adjusts his chair. We ready to go, mosey towards the gate. Jim and his buddy rush to Steve's side. Can we give you a hug? Pause. Steve nods kindly. These tender men embrace him, wish him luck, grateful to have met him. They hug us too, witnesses to exquisite radiance within twilight's window. My next piece is a poem of never-ending longing for my son, Michael, who died a few years ago. And this piece is entitled The Defenseless Heart. Faint light drifts away. Fog-like absence descends, step by footless step, gathers up this shard, pushes it into your pocket, shakes and spreads a cover of woven thorns, crumbled bones, day's night demons. Brokenness emerges from the folds. Eternal mourning, relentless as jackals gnawing the haunches of a gazelle. longing unanswered chokes the defenseless heart. Heart resists, searches for respite, finds the glint amidst tears of absence. How they fill, how they fall. My final poem is a mystical piece that grapples with the longing for spiritual transcendence. And the title of this poem is taken from a piece by poet Stephen Mitchell entitled Tao Chi. And my poem is entitled Nothing in This Life. Nothing, nothing is ever lost. The parched riverbed recalls the cool blue that once slaked cattle's thirst, ripped through the canyon, pummeling rock into pebbled sand. Water rushed and roared, tumbled and tore through the red land, hasty to join crashing waves. Rain pelts and fills the river's banks, continues within the tumble to sea. A droplet pauses in its descent towards the rushing river, pauses to watch its cloud thin to wisp, melds with the others, journeys towards greatness, laps the shore beneath sun's determined glare. The droplet rises from the river, up beyond the mesas, canopies, flocks flying in formation, coalesces with clouds meandering across fields of sky. To this world we come, stringing pearls and blighted bits of corn. Moments of transcendence, glimpsed and grabbed, or overlooked in smallness, in quivering fear and doubt. Sometimes the candle we carry with us triumphs. A small step reverberates across time. Phantom river over a rocky riverbed. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. I'm now proud and pleased to introduce the next reader, Kath MacLean.
Thank you, Merle. And thank you, John, so much for organizing this and for everybody who's here today, because it is kind of a day that you just want to get out, get some sunshine and a little gardening, something like that. I'm just going to read three. They're all very different. I'm going to read, the first one is from my newest manuscript, When We Get to the Red Chair. And it is, although it riffs off the Nancy Drew mystery series, the early ones from the 1930 to 1950, it's also its own romantic mystery. So, excuse me, a rattling chair. So this one is, again, from that. So it's called Present is a Small White Cat, creeping under the hedge, dying under the hedge. I saw a shambling possum, a hobbling mole, a cat stalking spring. Lilacs blush and ripple across the lake. I saw his dew-stick morning gleam in the light, his shadow in the grass, his floating seed. Pink blossom, fluttering fluff, a smudge, my pillow dreams. Trees quiver and rub the shed's door, thin, rust a nub, spin bicycle bars to liquid air. A gyrating cedar shakes the edges of gossamer, My hand, blurring the image, loosens wind's small thread, plays a chorus of skunk beneath the hedge. Does it matter if the present is a small white cat, or the dark, raising its head, mistakes a robin's cry for something else? Folding its velvet wing, bruising for a kind thought. Lift the breeze, look. I do not think he saw me. He could not see that far. So I'm going to move on and give you another one that's not terribly long either. This one is more recent, and I really, when I was writing it, I was thinking about the anti-love poems, and when I was thinking about the structure of how I learned to write anti-love poems, I had to, of course, think of my mentor, Doug Barber. So this is in memory of Doug. Just in, not really about, but you know what I mean. This is called Love, Oh Love. I was asked to write a love poem, so here we go, guys. Love, oh love. Emptying his bladder to his heart's content, he spreads himself wet and dripping. The ceiling clings to corners of the room, curtains shrink into frosted glass. Release the window. Unhinged, I want spring light, apple air, the courage of crocus. A Christmas napkin. The Virgin Mary weeps while I wipe clean. Still, there are days when walls rain orange and the center of my palms shine gold and slick. His coins, his loins, his talk rattle me underfoot. Rubber soled, I trace a root to pull. Long laced, a corset for a carrot. Slivers of slim stems, green shoots. Give me a clue. Running sunshine racing to slide beneath the celery's rib. April's door opens as if by command. There is no other way to put it on the kitchen table where he's sure to see it. Write me a poem. Love, oh love. My name stains the bottom of a bloodless page. Ask, who is she? I forget how to spell sticks and ticks. Happily ever after, that's the rub. I love, so often it loops back and leaves my feet swinging. Animal, my neck, my back, my bad. I've had enough time, more, to drown this lover. Okay. And I'm going to finish. I'm going to go back in time in more ways than one. Back in time to my book on Catherine Mansfield, Cat Among the Tigers. And just because this piece has kind of been haunting me as of late. This goes back to July of 1918. Of course, Catherine Mansfield is in this poem speaking to John Middleton Murray. But lately I've been thinking a lot about the sentiment in this poem. So this one is, it's near the end of the book. Let us be tender, let us be kind. Gorged on sentiment, the piano drinks, leans out past the creeper-covered windows, past the dark-lit sky, and turns a dog's sleep to bark and growl, to beg and sniff. The world is dreadful when it rains, or doesn't. Either you hold out your hand, meaning to, or not. I take my place, speak, or biting my tongue, wish to God I might stop these false starts. I might rub clean these spots of spotted lung. In this restless abandon, this rattle, this snap, snap wind wears words through and through, sniffs and smells about the gutter, kicks truth in the alley where a dog cowers about the night, leans against closed curtains, throws back its head and howls at a moonless moon. So let us agree to be tender when the dog barks, to walk in the garden, to talk in bed in this strange light, take tea outside, linger a while over the idea of nuts and cowslips and fires in the woods. What is it to be happy? To face the day exquisite, gorging ourselves on words, speaking or keeping quiet, blotting spots of tea, silencing the creeper crawlers. The space to write quiets a flowering star, reduces words to growly growl, a smoke screen, nuts. Even a dog can't find a lick of meat, a mutton chop, a scrap of bone. So let us agree not to make much of muchness, but instead to nose about the shadows. When the world is dreadful, to rub a spot or two, and lingering in the garden, muse about the light. Agree to be tender, agree to be kind. So I'm going to pass on the torch now to Brenda Clews.
Oh my goodness. um, Thank you, John, for organizing this. And oh, what beautiful poetry, everybody. Whew. So I am going to just briefly show you a drawing. It's not quite finished because I'll be reading a poem about it, but I don't want to leave it up because I'm going to read my stuff off the screen. Can you see that okay? Yes? Okay. Okay, so now let me find my... So I looked for poems on the theme of intimacy, longing, relationship. Not really something I've written about in the past few years, but so I have a couple of poems. The first one is called Artist Rendition. 1. Cleave crossed stars in discreet sessions, his gaze on her receiving, conjoined poses. Melanin opticals, hidden obsidian discs, absorb scatterlight, smoky midnight hues, pre-dawn dusk. Original, burnished, glisten skin, beauty of black. Attracted, nuance, innuendo, heat. 2. Pencil curves, head, trunk, groin, arouse, legs, arms, lounge. Her lips invite eyelash coquetry. Elbow on knee, rock, mountain, Sisyphus, that still point, rising, hold, falling. They float, geometries of body, white paper spaces, amor eterno. And I think I'm doing 3 more, and they are from my chapbook, The Luminous Poems, which was out some years ago. So these are all revised and have been worked on. Critical density. The moment of collapsing, ever expanding. Do we twirl about each other with an electromagnetic force that binds us in our own light? Is that why we can't see each other? Or was it that you adored while I danced? Space curved in on us, the visible invisible. You can't feel my parameters, as if you're disappearing into me. Only you aren't. The separation's unbearable. How we think of each other creates what we are for each other. On the plain, you sleep, dreaming of being cradled in me. Can we incarnate through the multiple relations that compose us? The pool of gazing. When I lean over the pool and gaze, it is your face. No one knew when the rupture occurred. We sought an apotheosis of love. Your eyes are deep as the sky, a lucidity of blue, gray, green. In the stillness of the water, you are a mirror, moving, dissolving, the mystery of the underwater. If I touch you, I shall disappear. Your eyes are an effluence of love, or is it my reflection in you? In the ebullition, you sank. How else can I describe the overflow of determined anger, its sadness, an inner violence muted by rippling waves, a delirium of dreams? On the surface of our mirrored selves, we are calm. What is the ground of our relationship? How can I discern you, who is me, who is you? I thought we were lovingly managing our souls, clinging to a rhetoric of love amid the dominations and enslavements of addictions and allurements, the struggle of a discourse to remain. When did you become the pool that I gaze upon? In this genetrix of love, what can save us? And I'll close with a poem called Glassblower. Glassblower plunges a handheld pole into sand from an ancient ocean bed in the interior of the country. Furious alembic, thousands of degrees, melting to glass, dip in color, swirling shapes, fire set, forging an inner glow. On this quiet, cool day, leaves unwrap and flutter, fresh, opalescent green buds discover the sun. Immersed, unable to appear, petals unfurl from my head, a flower woman lying under the earth, the furnace of sun. I didn't step onto a shore. I didn't step onto a shore strewn with tiny natural glass bits. It moved through my vision and fell in beads glittering on the beach. Alchemies of light, embedded light, the density of earth illumines. You shine through me like sun shines through crystal blown by the glass blowers holding the melting. Can I become the glass you look through, illumining the world with your light? Thank you. And I would like to introduce Kath MacLean.
I think you mean Clara.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Clara.
I'm in the illumined,
That's okay. 'cause
Clara
usually that's the order
Blackwood.
we
I'm
go
so
in, yeah.
sorry. Not
That's okay.
oh, dear.
We both have blonde hair, so
You go for it, Clara.
okay. Thank you, Brenda. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here on this Sunday afternoon. And this is always such a special event that we do. And thank you, John, of course, for organizing it as always. And I will begin with a poem entitled A Golden Hunger. And it is about the longing to go to an extreme or to become disordered, you could say. A golden hunger. She wanted the most dangerous ambrosia, whatever the radical deities were willing to bestow, a nightshade salad, Whatever could harm and heal, destroy and make better, bring her to the edge of the hallucinatory cliff. Third eye ablaze, she could barely touch his forehead alone and not take in the blue of him. His brink-checked life brought on transcendent appetite. She wanted to drink to over-satiety, every last drop before the gods, to wear the headdresses of near-vanquished goddesses in a secret piazza at high noon, devour the illustrious fruits of a clandestine religion. Together they would trove the seven wonders under fervent stars, taste the siren song infused in wine, and be led out elsewhere in lieu of a crime. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great, thank you. The next poem is also about longing, but paradoxically giving up. Under the cardinal cross. Tonight fire fights earth, air disperses water, Pluto squares Mars in grand cosmic trial. Tonight the Queen of Cups puts down the chalice and picks up the sword, draws the boundaries, lights the censer, says the prayers, says goodbye. He was the tabernacle, the grail, the chapel glass peered through from another side, cobalt flecked in cadmium red, an ascertaining gold, the two flames forming a fire body, a return to primordial space where they were indivisible, the whole tree, of nights where they would worship the old gods together and embrace like a ritual robe, the candles, musk anointed, dripping magenta wax. Her chords of diaphanous blue meet his. She cuts the red thread like a Kabbalistic bracelet, falling. And next I will read a love poem, which is a love poem to a Siamese cat, because as you pet lovers know, we have very close relationships with our beloved pets. And right before the pandemic started, I adopted a really wonderful Siamese cat. And it was really good timing considering how much time we were also spending at home and while still spending a lot of time at home. So yeah, obviously I thought this would be an appropriate choice for the intimacy theme. And it's called Love Poem for Blue. Royalty in a tiny frame, she slinks through hallways, hidden closets, and the iris of my eye, magnifying space, adding grandeur, glamour, turning everything royal blue. Priests in Siam kept them in their temples. Spirit guardians, they were chosen to house the souls of nobility after they died, living out their lives in pampered luxury. They have not forgotten this legacy. Rest as though in prayer, expect the highest pedigree of care. And as my blue-eyed cat wraps her tail around my wrist like a sacred goblet, I wonder, will she protect me in the afterlife? And I will conclude with a two-part poem that is on the theme of spiritual transcendence and the longing for spiritual transcendence, which I know Merle touched on earlier as well. And it is called Conversion 1. She finds herself on the steps of an oratory days after being given holy water to deter demons and a chaplet of Saint Michael to ask his intercession and protection. Plagued by dark shapes in her liminal state, she is looking to 1, find a way off the razor-laden path, 2, have a less hallucinatory existence, 3, talk to a priest. She had a vision of a lady of light on the stone steps, hands held in prayer, leaning forward, Mary. 2, the church forbids astrology and she is steeped in it like a most astringent tea, a necessary corrective this last decade. Watch out for cults, be vigilant, don't turn the guru into a partner. With Neptune and Sagittarius in the 9th house, her soul seeks knowledge and experience from among the array of religions. She had started with Hinduism, went to paganism, and is now returning to her family roots. In her pagan days, a Thelemite told her, "Your aura says you're Catholic." He was reluctant to initiate her. She never felt part of the world. Perhaps that explains her longing for heaven. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Clara. I'm going to pause the recording in a moment. Not pause it, stop it. So this will be put onto YouTube. And if any of you know people who wanted to be here, but for some reason couldn't make it, tell them to, if they just search YouTube for my channel, John Oughton, it will be on there. And I'll also put the link on Facebook. And I also want to thank all the readers today, not only for the fine poetry, but for staying to my somewhat arbitrary 8-minute time limit. Very professional, everybody. If any of you want to just chat or say hello or make comments, you can turn your mics on in a minute as soon as I stop the recording.